What's up, everyone? By the time you're watching this, 2021 will be in the past. It will now be 2022, which is crazy. I can't believe we're already over with the year now. As you can see from the title, I'm going to be talking about my 10 favorite albums of this year. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to be talking about what I think, in my opinion, are the 10 best albums of this year. This is just really going off of my personal opinion. I'm not trying to think of what is the best. This is just what I like, what I enjoyed the most. I'm also going to be filming a top 10 movies of the year video that will come out shortly after this one, or it at least should. Maybe I'll mess up and accidentally upload that before this one, I don't know. But you can look forward to that as well, and I'm just going to get straight into it. These are my 10 favorite albums that came out in 2021, starting with number 10. When You See Yourself, I think, was a surprisingly pretty good outing from the band Kings of Leon. It was by no means an original concepts or original styles explored. I do still think that it's a little bit too reminiscent of certain genres and certain other bands in the past. But I have actually listened to it a couple more times, and I gotta say, it's actually grown on me. I think that they put together a really solid album with some really good songs for the most part. I'm by no means a huge Kings of Leon fan, but I am impressed by, and I do admire just how they've been able to stay this solid and this cohesive as a whole. I think it's a good album. It's a good solid rock album, not amazing by any means, but just a really solid and nice listen. And with number 9, I have the very highly anticipated debut album from Olivia Rodrigo, that is Sour. I think with this album, Olivia proves, among some other things, that she really knows how to write a song that comes from the heart and comes from personal experience, as a lot of these songs do seem to be revolving around some sort of breakup that she might have gone through. In addition to that, she proves how well she can blend various different styles and genres of music on an album. You know, obviously she talked about how much she loves Taylor Swift and Lorde, and you can definitely hear that in some of the songs on this thing. Also, Avril Lavigne, you know, just that early 2000s pop punk era, you can hear some of that on here as well. I do think that the album falls a little bit short of expounding upon these ideas and this concept of a breakup that a lot of the songs are about, and a couple of the acoustic cuts don't really work for me, but I think this album does do a very good job at tugging at your heartstrings at certain moments, giving you very angst-filled rage with cuts like Brutal, and some very pretty and thought-provoking ones as well with songs like Traitor or Deja Vu. At number 8, I have LP by JPEG Mafia. Talked about this one briefly, my latest Things I Didn't Review video. I was very impressed with Peggy's work on this thing. The album was somehow able to be very experimental and very out there musically, while also being extremely catchy a lot of the time and making you bob your head. If I'm being completely honest, a lot of these songs are just bangers. They're just super, super good songs. I do think that it gets off to a bit of a slow start. It took me a few songs to really get into it and see what he was doing. And also, I don't think that there are some very good use of samples at times. But I was very impressed on the whole with Barrington's new album. That's his name, Barrington. First, he was on the Brockhampton song on Roadrunner, and then he did this. I mean, what a good year for him. Who gon' get the ladies feeling something? What? I don't get it. I'm so confused. It was the highest grade he gave. How could it be this low? Yeah, I know that's probably what all you are thinking. Number 7, I got An Evening with Silk Sonic. Look, I do still like this album. Obviously, it's in my top 10, so that's certainly saying something. But I will admit that I definitely overhyped this album. I think I sugarcoated it a tiny bit. I was sort of unaware that it definitely lacks in originality, even though it does still sound like a modern album on the whole. There are certainly a lack of very original ideas, musically speaking. There are certain songs in here I don't really like as much as I did initially, such as After Last Night. And also, while it is a very fun album, it's still a very enjoyable album. It's not one that really has me very emotionally involved, with the exception of cuts like Put On a Smile. So it's for those reasons why I have it lower in the top 10. Like I said, I do still like the album. I do still think it's a very good album, a very well done, well performed, well produced record on the whole. It's just lost a little bit of the magic for me personally, and it doesn't have as much emotional resonance as some other albums I've heard this year, like
I'll never learn if I never leap.
Yes, at number 6, I have 30 by Adele. And kind of similar to LP, this is another one that did take a few songs for me to really get into it and get wrapped up with it. But, I mean, man, the last leg of this album, especially the last 3 tracks, are honestly kind of mind-blowing. I mean, some of the most emotional, the most raw songs, most raw lyrics, even recording-wise. Especially with the song To Be Loved, I mean, oh my god. I've never been in a divorce personally, but just I feel everything she's going through whenever I listen to that song. So I think on the whole, Adele did a very good job of expressing all of her emotions and feelings that she was going through with this situation and having been divorced. And with that said, we're going to move on to my number 5 pick, which is an album by someone with not as much experience in life, but still has something to say for sure. That is
I'm happier than ever.
Happier Than Ever at number 5 by Billie Eilish. I like this album a lot. Honestly, I don't really understand why it had somewhat mixed reviews, or at least compared to her debut album. It definitely wasn't as well received as that one. I loved how varied the track listing was. If you know me, you know that I'm a big sucker for variety. As I mentioned in my Things I Didn't Review video when I talked about this, I really liked how almost every song felt like it was written at a different point in her life, when she was at a different place, different situation. Phineas proves once again to be a very good producer, and the album is even super varied in individual tracks. Like, there are several songs on this album that are mixing all different kinds of styles and genre just in that one individual song. So yeah, I mean, I dug this album. I thought it was really good. And at number 4, I have OK Human by Weezer. This album has really grown on me. I liked it initially when I listened to it, but honestly, I've grown to kind of love this thing. I think it's one of Weezer's best albums they put out to date, and one of their most mature sounding and best produced albums as well. All of the strings on this album sound fantastic. It just has such a happy, uplifting feeling to a lot of it. There's some great cuts off this thing, such as the lead single All My Favorite Songs, even though now they only play the AJR featured version on radio, which I don't hate, but I Will Go By, La Brea Tar Pits, Here Comes the Rain, some of my other favorite songs on it. And my number 3 pick is Sometimes I Might Be Introverts by Little Sims. I'm ashamed that this is really my introduction to Little Sims, who you can actually catch in Venom Let There Be Carnage. She's actually in that movie. She makes a cameo. Kind of funny. But the much better project she's associated with is this album that came out this year. Such a grand sounding album. From the very minute that this album starts, there's just this feeling of epicness, like you're about to embark on this journey listening to her lyrics and her storytelling, and such grand and lush arrangements in the instrumentations, taking inspiration from R&B, neo-soul, of course hip-hop as well. It isn't without a few moments in the track listing that are a bit dull, but I thought the majority of this album worked and hit very well. And so to move on to my number 2 pick, I mentioned an artist earlier in this video that was featured on this album. So you probably guessed it by now, but yes, it is.
When I look at myself, I see a broken man. Remnants of my pops put the Glock to his
Roadrunner, New Lights, New Machine by Brockhampton. This was one of my first album reviews sort of on this channel. My thoughts have remained pretty much the same. I'm still not a huge Bankroll fan or I'll Take You On, but damn it if this album didn't get me emotional at certain points, especially when it talks on the tragic suicide of Joba's father. I mean, the lyrics on The Lights are so descriptive and disturbing. I think it's gonna really make some people sick, honestly. And yeah, I think with this album, Brockhampton just proves to be one of the more unique groups out there in mainstream music. And I mean, certainly the best boy bands currently, since they do self-identify as a boy bands, like miles away from the next best. Who else would it be? BTS? Are you kidding me? BTS versus Brockhampton? So yeah, I love this album. Some standout tracks for me would be The Lights, When I Ball, What's the Occasion, Don't Shoot Up the Party, Chain On. Really just every song except Bankroll and I'll Take You On. Every other song I liked. Now before I get to my number one pick, I'm gonna go sort of a similar route that Watch Mojo does in their videos. At least, I don't know if they still do it. I stopped watching them years ago. But I'm gonna mention some albums that didn't make the list, but I do enjoy and I think are worthy of making note of. I think this also kind of builds some suspense for number one. What's number one gonna be? What's it gonna be? I think John Mayer made a good album with Sob Rock. I already found it to be a pretty underrated artist, and I think this album just further proves that and further made me think under that mindset. I also have grown to like Donda. I know initially I kind of just thought it was alright, but I have grown to like it on subsequent listens. I think it's a good album. Still, in my opinion, far from some Kanye's best projects, but it is certainly an admirable album, and I think one worthy of noting. Typhoons by Royal Blood, just lots of good, solid stoner rock songs on this thing. They experiment with some dance rock on it as well, which I wasn't as big a fan of those types of songs on it. But, I mean, I think really solid album on the whole. And I think that these two guys just work really well and have very good chemistry together. I did also think that Billy Cobb's self-titled album, Billy Cobb, was pretty good. A somewhat stripped-back album, but there are some good cuts on here. Particularly, I like the song Bobby Hip. Kind of a play on of his name, actually. That's a good one. I like his very deep vocals on it. And then Inside Every Fig is a Dead Wasp by the band Lunar Vacation. Just a very fun, chill-sounding, relaxing album. Also a good album to listen to during the summer when it's sunny out. I don't think this came out in the summer, but it would have been perfect because it totally fits that mood, I think. And with those out of the way, I'm ready for my number one album of 2021. Yeah, I'm just gonna cut right to it. Here it is.
I'm on the hunt for perfect, but decent is what I've been on. I know she fell in love, but commitment is...
Call Me If You Get Lost by Tyler, the Creator. By no means was this a mind-blowing project from Tyler, but it's easily the album that came out this year that I've revisited the most and thought to listen back on the most. I enjoyed the concept of this album quite a bit. There are some really great features on this thing, ranging from Brent Faiyaz to Pharrell Williams to Lil Wayne. I've heard some complaints with regards to the production of it and the mixing of certain songs. Honestly, that normally doesn't bother me that much unless it's like really bad and really obvious. For the most part, I just kind of overlook that. Especially when the actual songs that are being presented are really good. And this album has a lot of those. Some favorites of mine would be Masa, Sweet, I Thought You Wanted to Dance, Juggernauts, What's Your Name. I have also grown to like Lemonhead as well. I was pretty close-minded about it because they referenced the pandemic. And that was sort of at a time when I just still didn't like pandemic references, but now I've sort of come to just accept it. I'll admit that was sort of on me. And yeah, that was my 10 favorite albums of 2021. Look forward to my top 10 movies of 2021, which should be coming out very shortly after this video. And let me know what some of your favorite albums were. If you kept up with music this year, I would love to know what you think. And thank you all for watching. Thank you all for supporting me throughout this year. To anyone who did, and to anyone who subscribed, thank you so much. That's all I got. Peace out.